Hello, my name's James Clements, and I'm a journalist, sorry, for film games, etc. Um, and today I'm speaking with the CEO and executive VFX supervisor from Shade VFX, who most recently worked on Batman v Superman. So I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Bryan Godwin. I am the owner, founder, and executive visual effects supervisor at Shade VFX here in Santa Monica, California.
Um, so when were you brought onto the Batman v Superman project? What time did you start working on it?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. It was quite a while ago, at least a year ago. These things kind of sort of have ebb and flow to them in terms of how they start. It's a little difficult to put an exact date on when we got into the thing because sometimes you start working on something, you start doing look development, and it's hard to say exactly when you officially began.
Okay. Um, so, how did your company come to work on the project? Did the filmmakers look at your previous work on Marvel Productions and then come to you, or did you contact them, or how did this come about?
Believe it or not, the visual effects community is a very tight knit group. A lot of sales and things like that are very word of mouth, and a lot of the creatives and visual effects team on their end, they were all familiar with our work, familiar with our team, and invited us to give them a hand.
Okay. So obviously you've worked on some Marvel productions like Jessica Jones and Daredevil. Um, in terms of working between TV shows and films, how is the process different for them two mediums?
Sure, they're different, but they're getting more and more the same. Many years ago, the timelines and budgets for most television were dramatically different than film, and we're really a film company until very recently. We hadn't done any television work, but as TV has caught up in quality and budget a little bit, they've sort of found this convergence point where they tend to be somewhat more similar. That being said, a feature film, you can have a little bit longer time to work on some of the shots than you would on television. We're also, sort of particular about what types of television products we do. We primarily live in the sort of Netflix and premium cable space where they actually start making the episodes way before they're aired, so that there is enough time to get the shots done. It's interesting. I feel like television and movies are each trying to become one another. Movies are becoming more sequel driven and essentially hour and a half episodes that come out every few years. And TV is trying to catch up by being able to drop a 13-hour movie on your lap at the same time.
Okay. When you were working on Batman v Superman, how closely intertwined were you with the other filmmakers? Did you have to coordinate with the cinematographers maybe quite a bit, or?
Not in this case. It kind of depends. Shade being a smaller boutique, we kind of do two different types of projects. Our projects tend to be either the entirety of a smaller to mid-sized film or a very specific creative part of a larger film. In the case of Batman v Superman, we were called upon to do some pretty exciting set extension work up in the Himalayas and also the Bat laser in the Bat Cave. And at that point, it was a problem-solving mission after everything had already been shot. So we were brought on after principal photography was completed. But we did work really closely with visual effects producer, visual effects supervisor. Zach was looking at our shots every day, and so we were pretty closely intertwined with the creative team.
Okay. So I've also read that your company was one of a number of companies working on the visual effects for Batman v Superman. So what exactly were you tasked with? Did they kind of set it out saying these type of shots go to one company, these type of shots go to another, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Especially on the larger films, it's really rare that there's any one company that does all of the work, which is a stark contrast to something like Daredevil or Jessica Jones, where we did do all of the work. You could kind of think of a Marvel TV series to be sort of like a mid-budget movie in its entirety, in comparison to something like Batman vs Superman, which is a huge budget and many vendors get brought on. So generally, the production team will task out the right type of shots to go to the right type of company to help solve those problems.
Okay. You said that you often get sent shots, and then you have to kind of work on them after they've been done. What exactly do filmmakers or TV show makers say to you? Do they say, we need some blood added to this person, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Essentially, especially if everything's already been shot, we get a shot or a cut to cut, and it's like, okay, well, we need you to, make this guy's head explode and light this other guy on fire, and then put a big laser in there, and then maybe a dinosaur walks in and tears everything apart. But it's usually a really specific sort of bill of goods that the client is paying us to do. Now, on other projects where we're involved from the beginning and we're there on set shooting, like Daredevil or Jessica Jones, we get a script and we work with the filmmakers to be able to help tell them, here's where you need visual effects. Here's how we could get this in camera. Here's where we should use a practical effect, or maybe we should really light something on fire instead of using expensive CGI to solve the problem. So it just sort of depends on the project.
Okay. So obviously you're taking on these big projects, but you said at the same time it's not a huge company, Shade VFX. So how many people roughly work for your company?
We're about 70 people. We have offices in Santa Monica and New York City. That number can flex a little bit depending on how busy we are. So, we're sort of in that solid mid-sized boutique, but we do kind of take a larger shop approach to how we work. So a lot of times our clients are surprised to hear that we're only about 70 people.
Okay. So how many of them 70 worked on Batman v Superman? Was it kind of the whole team focused on one project, or do you take on multiple projects at the same time?
Yeah, we usually have anywhere between 8 and 12 projects going, and oftentimes an artist will work on several projects at once because their particular discipline or what their specific artistic abilities align to might be happening on a few different projects at once. So on Batman vs Superman, I would imagine the team was probably about 20 total, maybe a little bit less.
Okay. So is there any specific visual effects in Batman v Superman that possibly took the longest to master?
Yeah, I think the mount. Well, it all kind of took about the same amount of time. The laser was a fun experimental exercise because there's lots of ways to make a laser, and of course, everybody wants a laser that nobody's ever seen before. So in that regard, it took a lot of sort of pre-production art and illustrations and creative drawings to kind of come up with a bunch of different ideas before we settled on the final look.
Okay, so if there was one visual effect in the film that you were most proud of, what would that be?
Honestly, I really do like the work we did up on the mountaintop. It was shot in a very low altitude location, and we added in fully CG clouds and snow and atmosphere, and it really sets a mood. And I feel like when you see the before and afters on that, you'll see just how barren it seemed and less impressive before we did what we did. I also like the fact that it's a very natural looking effect. It feels like it could have really happened, or it could have been happening on camera. And that's really where we like to work. We like our work to be invisible. We know we've done our job as best as possible if nobody knows that we were there at all.
Sure. I've seen on your website that you have these videos of before and after. Like the populating the crowds and stuff was pretty impressive. Do you then? It sounds like you have a video like that planned for your effects on Batman v Superman.
Yes, and hopefully we'll get clearance to send it out sometime soon. But those things kind of move along slowly. Sometimes they like to wait for the DVD release before the before and afters are allowed to be shown. But that'll be coming soon.
Okay, that's definitely something to watch out for. So what sort of technology was actually used to work on your shots? Is there any techniques in particular that were notable?
Yeah, all the stuff we did on the mountaintop was all very physics based. So fluid simulations for the clouds. It's all sort of based in this kind of, people say fluid simulations, but fluids really mean in our world kind of means anything of a gaseous nature. So it could be water, it could be fire, it could be snow, it could be clouds, it could be dust. All of that comes down to the effects team that creates those dynamic simulations. So there's quite a bit of technology that goes into making that stuff feel real, which is balanced by the art of making it give an impact from an emotional perspective or a visual perspective.
Sure. I've also seen quite a lot of people complimenting Batman v Superman's visual effects. How does it feel to have worked on something that's been held in such high regard visually?
Oh, it's great. We love working on big projects, and we do a lot of small projects too that are super fun for different reasons. But when we're fortunate enough to be a creative part of such a large endeavor, the team gets excited, the company gets excited, everybody really enjoys the work. So we're very proud to have been a part of it.
Okay. Yeah, so obviously you've worked on other high-profile projects such as Jessica Jones, but is Dawn of Justice the perhaps largest profile film your company's worked on? Or not necessarily film, just production?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to say like what largest, for us, Daredevil season 2 is probably the largest single project that we've done in terms of number of shots, the level of complexity. Again, it's instead of 25, 30, 40 shots for a project like Batman v Superman, Daredevil season 2, I think we did 1,200 shots. So it's a much bigger endeavor, even if the show itself isn't quite as large in scope.
Okay, so for the TV shows like Daredevil, is it the same process? They kind of finalize the shot and then send it over to you to work on that?
A little bit different in that, and we do this on movies as well, just not usually the giant tentpole films like Batman vs Superman, but we get involved from the beginning. So we're actually on set, working with the directors, working with the cinematographers. Our team is there every step of the way to make sure that things are being shot properly, because the timelines are a bit tighter, the budgets are a bit tighter, and everything counts in terms of making sure you get that shot exactly right. But then at the end, after it has been shot, all the shots go to editorial, they get edited, those shots come to us, and at that point, it is pretty much exactly the same process as making a film.
Yeah. So if you didn't mind, I was thinking we could speak a bit about how you reached your position as CEO at Shade. Did you found the company yourself, or did you kind of work through the ranks to get to that position?
Yes, no, I started the company 7 years ago in 2009, and we started out with about 5 people, and now we've grown to almost 70. So it's been a pretty rapid growth. But I've been working in visual effects for about 20 years now. I've worked in everything from commercials, advertising, animated features, video games. I've kind of gone all around and around and gathered all that experience together that culminated in my sort of biggest adventure, which is Shade.
Okay. Are there any notable video games in particular that you worked on?
I way back in the day, my first job was on Final Fantasy IX, which was, I think, the last PlayStation game to be made in 1998. I worked for Electronic Arts in their Chicago office for a little while and worked on some of their fighting titles while I was there.
Nice. Okay, so were you able to learn quite a lot about visual effects for games that then transferred back into films?
Yeah, absolutely, and vice versa. I mean, I was brought onto the gaming teams to help bring some of that cinematic style to real-time technology. But I learned a lot about efficiencies, how to be thrifty with your costs, with your timings, with your team, with what technology you have. It's another type of thing where the tech is really converging on both sides, and the visuals are getting better and better. So they end up being more similar than dissimilar.
Okay. Are there any future projects, maybe for Marvel or DC, that you're hoping to work on?
Oh, there's a bunch. I can't say too much about what's going on with Marvel, but there's definitely a lot more to come for the Netflix series that we're looking forward to.
Okay. So I was wondering, because I saw Batman v Superman myself in IMAX. Is is there any opportunities for you to maybe optimize your visual effects for a certain viewing experience, such as IMAX, or maybe the big screen or the Blu-ray release?
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit more work. The output resolution ends up being a little bit higher, um, which means the renders are longer and the effects need to be crisper, and you just need all of the fidelity to be that much more detailed. Interestingly, all of the Marvel for Netflix work is made for 4K resolution, which is even larger. So it's just as scrutinizing in that regard. So again, we see this kind of parallel between the two worlds coming together.
Okay. So clearly you've worked on some quite incredible projects so far, but are there any franchises that you would absolutely love your company to work on if you could just pick one franchise?
Well, I mean, we're loving working with Marvel in every way. Working on the DC stuff was super cool too. I'm really excited about all of the stuff that DC kind of has lined up. I can't say too much about what projects those are specifically, but I think Batman v Superman really cemented them as a real player in making, high profile, mature types of films. That really stand toe to toe to what Marvel is doing. So I'm looking forward to having more fun with that.
Sure. So obviously some of your more high profile work has been on superhero stuff, but there's also been some work on more grounded projects as well. Do you see yourself perhaps sticking with the certain type of movie, superhero movies, or do you see yourself working on a variety of genres still?
We love doing a variety. It keeps everything fresh. Our brand is again really built on doing the invisible. All of the effects that support the vision, that don't pull you out of the film, that look like they could have really happened. And pretty much every television show, every movie, from the lowest end romantic comedy to the biggest superhero brawl, they all have visual effects in them of some kind. And particularly the types of effects that we do, which are sort of behind the scenes and a little less in your face. So we enjoy having a broad scope.
Sure. Unless there's anything else you wanted to say, I think that's about all I've got.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the chat, and I appreciate your time. It's always good talking to you.